2025 to another podcast of Call Me Mommy with Lynn Petronella, your guest hostess. And I wanted to wish you a happy Friday in America the Beautiful. America the Beautiful. That is how America has been perceived for hundreds of years by pioneers, explorers, and ironically, I don't know if you know this, but the word for America in Chinese means beautiful country. And I wanted to share that with you today because beauty is an experience that can transcend a lot of things. A mountain, an ocean, a prairie. All of these things can, in turn, make you feel a sense of beauty and pride, the Grand Canyon, in a country that is diverse and multifaceted. And I say that because I've had the opportunity to travel all over this country and all over Europe. And I've met a lot of people who have immigrated here who have said to me, "We love this country. It's very beautiful. We've been all over." And if you haven't had the opportunity to go to some of our national parks, there are so many of them and they are so diverse. I highly recommend that you take that opportunity and see some of them. I think there's over 50 of them. Thank God that many of the presidents set this aside. Actually, Theodore Roosevelt was from a New York president from my home state who grew up on Long Island near me in Oyster Bay. He was a very big outdoorsman and he came west. And when he saw the beauty of the Grand Canyon and other areas, made certain that they be put aside for future generations. Like Yosemite and other places. And I was very, very fortunate to have a family that loved traveling. And we got to see so many of these sites. And I do know for a fact we have a very beautiful country. And we want to keep it a beautiful country. People who have come from other countries have said, well, you know, in Europe we have these mountains and we have these streams and oceans. They said, but, you know, you have all of that here in America. The only thing different in Europe is that we have old buildings. And I thought that was kind of an interesting comment. We have old buildings. And yes, they do have old buildings because when I was there, you get to see the amazing historic nature of the Greek Empire, the Roman Empire, France, where Napoleon, you know, had his famous battles. Versailles, Notre Dame, the Louvre. These places are so historically, I would say, awe-inspiring because they have over 2,000 years worth of history. I mean, the United States is only going to be in its 250th year. We are still babies in comparison. Hearkening back to this podcast, Call Me Mommy. America is still a baby in the scheme of countries. 250 years is a drop in the bucket in terms of longevity. And yet, the miraculous nature of America, which you have to take into consideration, is that in America, because of the freedoms that we have enjoyed, the freedom to think and create and do, we have invented and created. We have been the pioneers and leaders in many, many things that have become world renowned. And I think of one thing in particular because I happen to be born on December 17th. And December 17th happens to be the first day that Orville and Wilbur Wright flew an airplane. Americans invented the airplane. I mean, come on. That's amazing. There's many other inventions that have come from American ingenuity. That's why they call it American ingenuity. And that's why people want to copy us. That's why people want to steal from us. I'm also a writer, and I've written a screenplay. And, there's a tremendous challenge for intellectual property in the era of technology, specifically from China. And I can tell you why. Chinese children are not raised the same way as American children are. There's a different way that we're raised. And I hearken back to the way we were raised. We had a very well balanced life of activities. And it's been shown that when you have different activities, your brain becomes multidimensional and you become more creative. And that's not an accident that creativity is in Hollywood. I mean, it could up its game, but that's been for a long time the be all and end all. And I understand why they like what we write, because what we write is different. We're raised differently, and I hope that we continue to be able to, have art and music and sports and all these amazing other activities for our young minds besides a computer, because these are the things that will generate the new inventors. Not everything has to be a computer, but we invented the airplane, we invented the computers, we invented a lot of things that we use today and that the world tries to emulate today. So when I say America is beautiful, it is a beautiful country. And I wanted to share that with you today on Friday, so I hope you get to see it. And I hope you get to keep it the way it is. When we were growing up, you couldn't throw trash. If you threw trash, there was a fine. I mean, it really burdens me to see people throwing garbage or cigarette butts or anything like that. There's a carelessness that I find unacceptable. You don't want to trash where you live. And what is troubling to me is that for a very wealthy nation, that we've been misappropriating much of our monies and not really taking care of our streets and our homeless and our other areas. And I hope we start to make a turnaround in that regard, because there's really no need for it. We're a smart, creative country, and we have a very can-do spirit. And, I had an opportunity to be a pioneer in running. And for me, I got to see this country up close and personal every day for 3 years. And it was really a wonderful, joyful experience for me, because there is a goodness in America. And I just don't like Americans being taken advantage of. I don't think any of us should be taken advantage of just because we're good and kind-hearted people. And I think when you go back to the beginning of the birth of this nation, it came through George Washington. Now, everybody wanted this country because it was the, apple of everybody's eye. The Catholics wanted it for Rome. The British wanted it for King George. And we wanted to have our own thing. We wanted to break away. And it was a very gutsy move on the part of George Washington to be able to defeat an army that was so much bigger than him. So that was kind of divine providence. And I feel there's divine providence still hovering over America. We have to go back to the beginning. We're a Judeo-Christian country. And you can't take care of the whole world when your own house is on fire. That's number one. So let's take care of each other in America. And, even when Christopher Columbus came here, I was very fortunate when I was in Spain to eat at a restaurant, which was exactly where Christopher Columbus left to come to America. And, at that time, everybody thought the world was flat. And how would he know? He was an explorer. He said, well, let me go see. And if it wasn't for the Vikings and, Vasco da Gama and all these other people, Christopher Columbus, we wouldn't know much about the rest of the world. They had to get in a boat, cross the Atlantic Ocean, which took a tremendous amount of courage. I would highly recommend it if you haven't seen the movie 1492 with Gerard Depardieu, with the director Ridley Scott. Take a peek at that movie, because it ventures into a deeper side of Christopher Columbus's journey. And actually, the reason the movie got produced was a woman in Spain came across real Christopher Columbus's letters, and she started reading them, and she goes, nobody knows the story. and she made it into the movie 1492, which I thought was fascinating. And if you haven't seen it, it's interesting because, we want to chastise people for murdering people and having wars. Wars have gone on since the beginning of time. There has always been a conquest in I would say, the human spirit, usually men, to conquer other lands. The Greeks did it, the Romans did it, the French did it, the British did it, and then people came here, and when we met that there were other people here, we tried to get along with other people here, but obviously we became an overwhelming bunch, and then we moved across the country, and, we tried to make it a nation of 50 states and tried to be, I would say, as fair as possible, even under the circumstances. But again, we were a young nation. We had pioneers that would get in, covered wagons, and there was no road. I think we kind of forget that. 250 years ago, there were no roads, and people just had to learn. And since we are still a baby nation, I still think we're going through growing pains as a country. And that's how I sort of look at where we are today in America. Even though America is beautiful, we have a ways to go. You can always be more beautiful. You can always take suggestions. Taking suggestions doesn't mean everybody lights everything on fire like like spoiled children. I didn't get my way. I mean, come on. I think we all need to grow up a little bit and try to take a step back and and not be destroying the country, because that's not going to help anybody. But today is Friday. I do believe America is beautiful. And I hope that you will take some time to enjoy the beauty that is America and the beauty that is in your own life. And that is my wish for you today. Have a great weekend. Talk to you soon.